Hi, I'm just going to walk through the process of creating a vector file for the laser cutter using Inkscape on Ubuntu. The first thing we want to do is go into File and Document Properties. You can see that the default unit is in pixels and we need to set that to millimeters. Another thing we can do is change the size of the page, and that's probably not absolutely necessary, but we can actually change the page size to be exactly the size of the laser cutter bed, so that's 445 millimeters in width and 285 millimeters across. So that's the size of the laser cutter bed. The second thing we're going to do is go into grids. This is going to help us dimension our object. So we're going to create a new grid. We're going to make sure that the grid units are in millimeters, and we're going to have a 1 millimeter by 1 millimeter grid with major grid lines every 5 millimeters. Okay, you can change the spacing of your grid if you're doing finer or larger work, but for my object, 1 millimeter by 1 millimeter should be good. Alright, set up our document, and just to move around we can use a mouse wheel to move vertically. We can hold shift and a mouse wheel to move left and right, and control on the mouse wheel to zoom in and out. We set up our grid so that the major grid here, so this is a 5 millimeter by 5 millimeter square, and if we zoom in a bit more you can see that it's made up of 1 millimeter by 1 millimeter squares. Now our object, we're going to start with a circle, and we're going to have no fill and a black stroke. The actual color of the lines doesn't make any difference to the laser cut. It's just for appearance. So we're going to start in an arbitrary spot. The default behavior of Inkscape is to snap to grids, so that's what we want. So we'll just start here and draw a circle, and that's not centered on where we clicked. We can fix that by holding shift, and now that's centered. So we wanted an 8 millimeter circle. Alright, now if we look at this object you can see that it's not 8 millimeters, so I'm going to actually go in and change that myself. So I'll just type in the dimensions of the object, and the x and y coordinate for a circle is actually the bottom left, so I want it to be here, so that's going to be 211 by 66. So I can make my object exact by just editing settings up the top. So I'm just going to go and draw a couple more circles. Alright, I've drawn my circle, so now I'm going to draw some straight lines using this curve and straight line tool. Now I can start a line by single clicking, and you can see that it's snapping to the grid. So I want this line to be 13 millimeters long, so I can end that line by double clicking. So I'm going to do this again by clicking and 13 millimeters and double clicking. Alright, now I want this circle to be 35 millimeters from the bottom of the object, so I'm going to go down 7 of these major grids. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You can see down the bottom that it's got the angle and distance for this line, so I'm actually going to just check that that's right. So yeah, so the line segment from where I've just ended up down the bottom to the center of the circle is 35 millimeters long. So that's good. All right. Now we can draw several segments at once. So I want this base to be 6 centimeters across. I'm going to go across 3 centimeters. I'm going to click once. Now if I go up 5 millimeters, single click again, then come across, and I'm going to line up with the top of that line that's above the circle. So click once, drag up, and to end that set of segments, I'm going to double click. Alright, now I just want to repeat that on the other side. So it was 30 millimeters across, so I'm just checking the distances on the bottom toolbar. So 5 millimeters high, and then I'm going to come across 17, single click up to the top to close that, and double click to end. Alright, so that's my object. It's basically ready to go. Now the only thing we need to do is change these circles from objects into lines. The laser cutter works on lines, so we're going to select my circles, and I'm going to go up to path, object to path. Let's change the circle from an object to a circular path. Alright, so now the object is finished. I'm going to go up and I'm going to file, I'm going to save as. Now for loading up in CamBam, I'm going to save it as a DXF. So you can change the file type just in this selection over here. So I'm selecting DXF, and I'm going to call it stand.dxf and hit save. We want to make sure that the base unit is in millimeters because that's what the laser cutter uses, and just hit OK, and we're done. So this object can be loaded up in CamBam and cut on the laser cutter.